Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to the channel. My name is Alckemy. Today we're going to be talking about track sketching and building vibes and kind of just organizing your thoughts or organizing and preparing yourself to get into your bigger projects or to like find a starting point of how to get out what you want. I had a talk with Cage not too long ago, and he was really spending a lot of time with me on this idea about doing track mockups and about just kind of like doing these track sketches, as much arrangement as possible, and kind of, leaning into that. And I think that what he was doing was really phenomenal. I found that I have my own way about how I like doing this, and I want to talk about why it's going to be a little bit different, and I want to talk about like how I've been able to kind of find a middle ground in between. So when he was doing all this, and when he was talking to me about this, it was pretty much just saying like, hey, like use any means necessary to just like get the idea out. Piano, right? Any drums, whatever. And I tried doing that for at least a few weeks. The issue that I ran into for myself was that it's really hard for me to write stuff that's just a mock-up if I don't have the aesthetic, if I don't have the, if I don't have the means to kind of like have the world that I want to be in. And that's going to be the key takeaway from today's video. And then I was like, well, I could just like maybe make the assets of the world that I'm supposed to be building. And then I was like, well, but why would I do that when I could just make the track? So why would I make a mock-up and go through the trouble to like get to the aesthetic and do all that when, and then why would I make a mock-up when I can just like write the track out? You get what I mean? So it became kind of like this violent paradox of why do I do this? And today, I know that, and I apologize that it's taken me a little bit to get here. I've kind of found my version of what it means to write a mock-up track. And I want to show you some of them, and then I want to show you kind of just a pathway about how I do this. So first and foremost, let me open up an older project or something that could be helpful. For example, Icebreaker. This is not done. It's not a song. It's nothing. But all it is a vibe and an atmosphere of something that I was just writing out of pure, like, I don't know, what would I say? What would you say? Just candidly, I guess. So if you take a listen to this, it's nothing special, but today's video is about vibes. Today's video is about feelings and about things to write to help you get inspired to write more. You know what I mean? That's kind of what we're doing. This is not specific to melody. It's not specific to chords. It's not specific to anything other than something that sparks an emotion. It could be drums. It could be a vocal. It could be, audiating a melody or audiating some lyrics that spark something within you. But this has been my version of what sketching turns into, because even just doing something as very simple as this with 3 tracks, I can actually come up with an idea of what kind of beat or what kind of project I would want to turn this into. And I'm not going to do that in front of you right now because, for one, it's going to take forever, but 2, I'm not really in that mental creative state. So understanding this and kind of getting into these vibes is kind of been how I've learned to sketch. And I might not ever even use this, but as an icebreaker, no pun intended, but yeah, as an icebreaker or a way to just kind of play with emotion responsibly, not like, not like some fuckboy problems or whatever, but play with emotion responsibly as a matter of I'm trying to get a gauge for how I'm feeling or for what comes out. This is something that I've found a lot of success in. In fact, I made a lot of these before I wrote the last track of the EP, which was incredibly like just pure heaviness, which it's not out yet, but I'll give you a small glimpse to kind of paint the picture. But anyways, I wrote a lot of vibes in order to get something out that was kind of like this. And to be honest with you, even though what I played from before has nothing to do with this, it just kind of helped, for one, get my creative juices flowing, but two, it helps me kind of just start to play and inch towards these different worlds and how to access that from doing everything from scratch. So I want to show you this patch that I've made a video on, and this has been one of the most helpful things for me. It is called, it is in Serum 2, but it's something that is, let me see, hyperchorus, nice pad, plink plink, simple melodic maker. I don't even remember what this is called, but we'll find it. Hold on one second. Sorry. Kyle pad, perk starter kit, Serum 2, simple melodic maker, spooky blueprint. I think it's this one. So this is like very basic. It's just a saw wave. It's got some FM and it's got a bandpass. Then we have some distortion and we have some convolution reverb. Now if I play a note here, right? This is just something that is a sound that kind of helps me have a starting place. And so if I were to write something very basic, kind of like, I don't know, so yeah, we can go like this, pitch that up an octave. And sometimes it doesn't even need to be a melody, you know? Maybe it could just be an octave of we're gonna write in G, so where is that? If we were to do something like this and leave it in ambiguity. Well, this is now something that I can start to build off of, right? Because even if I were to just do something like, I don't know, a sine wave. Right? Well, these are things that I'm now starting to get more ideas off of to harmonize with, to start building like small tools or, you know, other instrumentation from a vertical standpoint to filling out the vibe. So, you know, if I were to do something that was just a little bit of FM, say add some of this here, and maybe we use just a little bit of white noise perhaps as a separate thing. That can sometimes help with convolution reverb. There we go. And now we can kind of have something that will fit along with this. So we can kind of notate something like that. And then once we have, you know, something build off of this, it's a little bit different than just making a melody or making a chord, right? It's really just trying to build a world that you can sit in and play with without having to necessarily commit to the track, if that makes sense. But you don't just want to like swap it out and be like, oh, no, that doesn't work, or no, that doesn't, whatever. And I will say that in some cases, you might even want to consider using the clip launcher for this, so that way you can come up with, you know, ideas that you can mix and match with each other. I tend to just do it in this because it's, I don't know, it's easier for me. But if we were to just kind of have something like this, and then have that one thing here, then now we have two instruments with this. Well, then maybe we want to get more experimental with it and throw something on here like Beam. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But let's say we take something kind of like that, and then we kind of just pull this over here. Do you see what's going on with what I'm doing, by the way? In case if it wasn't obvious, I'm making a lot of decisions very quickly. And I'm doing stuff to add to this. I've just put myself, I started with one thing and then I gave myself some gas and some momentum to be like, okay, boom, execute, go for it. And whenever I run out of steam, especially when I'm doing this, when I don't feel interested in pursuing this, I bounce it out and I just leave it. Or I make it, you know, maybe like a beat tape worthy of a duration. So let's say like 4, 6, 8, 16 bars, right? And then maybe I'll kind of manipulate this stuff or have some kind of change or, you know, some kind of little different elements. I don't even have any drums over this. I don't even have any bass, but it doesn't matter because I've created a vibe. And that is how I've kind of come into sketching very basic stuff, but using this as a means to start to manipulate or to get other textures. Because as soon as I hit track 2, right, I went for beam and I started resampling, or I might reach for other devices to start to break this, to start to go off of. But you have this beginning point that maybe this track is going to become something completely different. And I'm not married to this, but if you can get this far with even just either a melody, sound, texture, whatever, that makes you curious to want to go to the next part, you're already cultivating in a positive direction and you're already improving your skill set. Maybe you get hung up on step 5, right? Maybe, you know, you're like, okay, cool, I have this. Well, now what do I do with it? You've at least gotten to there. And now consistently, anytime you start a new project, you can at least get up to this point. This is a percentage, if you can look at it this way, of a track. And so now when you're writing these concepts or whatever, you're getting these vibes and anything like that, you are essentially contributing to a percentage of a finished product, a finished, you know, idea, a finished whatever. You could even call this an idea if you want. Let's say this is, you know, we're going to put this in the context of a video game. Thousands of years ago, before the dawn of time. You know what I'm saying? Or like maybe it's something spooky is happening, or like, you know, maybe something creepy. It doesn't matter. Like, of course, there's a lot of tweaking that I would do to this, but with very minimal work, literally 4 notes, pretty much 3. G. Wait, it's only 2 notes. It's G and G sharp. These are just these are just octaves. So that's funny. Yeah, like, but hopefully this makes sense, because if you can start playing in the worlds of vibes, then this is so important. And I'm sorry that it took this long into the video to kind of relay this, but this is where all of your hardware, all of your synths, all of your apps that you have on your phone, on your iPad, all of that stuff immediately becomes exponentially more valuable. Because if you can establish a vibe in any software, any DAW, any program, real life, recording, whatever, you start to see how much more it can do for you if you have a little bit of wherewithal on A, how to expand, or how to use it to catalyze something to go off of, you know? And the reason why I like doing it with this is because I actually wrote this, as easy as it was and as easily as somebody can recreate it. I'm not referencing a song that's complete and trying to rebuild the whole thing. This is a vibe and an atmosphere and a, I mean, at its base form, yeah, it's a vibe, but it's a feeling that we can kind of just sit with. And with this feeling, we can use this feeling to get into tapping into our emotional creative output, I would argue, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. Sorry, again, today, I'm doing all these recordings at once, but I'm trying to like strike while the iron is hot with inspiration. But I feel like this concept will help you bridge both the gap between sketching and also like how to come up with ideas for track writing in the first place. And then once you have something kind of like this, you can create a different vibe. You know, you can create, or you can start a new vibe or whatever from a different standpoint. Like, let's say you have drums. I wouldn't necessarily say do what I do with, you know, filling out the entire drum groove and then quitting on the project, because that's what it tends to happen with me. But if you can start with a groove and then that leads you to other ideas, and then you start implementing the musicality part or the texture part that will help you build an idea for a song. It's basically like create percussion, or like put a percussion line down without kicks and snares if possible. And within this, if you can find something that has an interesting perk sound or whatever, I think most of these are tonal. Shakers are great. Shakers are actually like so goated for this kind of stuff. So if I were to do something and I do this, this probably isn't going to be very inspiring to either of us. Maybe. But even without changing the timing, if I were to just focus on maybe some stuff like this, to where I'd go like this. This one's going to be really short. Now look. Well, now we have something to go off of. You get what I mean? And this is something that could easily be a vibe as well. And if you can have something that has some kind of texture over it or some supporting element, again, that's not a kick and snare, it can help you again start to use this as a basis to create the entire track around. Now, for me personally, I'm the kind of guy that has to like break everything. So it needs to be something more along the lines of like this. And maybe this, which will change the vibe of this a little bit, but so let me see this. And we can go here. Let's see what that sounds like. And let's do this. And then ease off of this just a little bit so that way it doesn't sound like it's trying to catch up too much. Maybe on this one we can make this a little bit later, so. And then take away this to simplify to give more space for this guy. And now we have a negative space to where something's like, hey, something should go here. And then if you kind of play in the world of like even doing other random stuff, like say pitch, which I love Bitwig for this, by the way, because we can actually randomize the pitch. So we can keep the mean at 0 and then go chaos. Turn that up a little bit, and say like this will float somewhere between a semitone. Well, now this is going to be a little bit different. And then we can just be like, all right, let's keep this one here. But within this, right, it's still something that is a rhythmic vibe, I guess I would say. And then what you can do to kind of fortify how to listen to this, because I know that sometimes that can be a little bit ambiguous and be like, what am I listening to? You have another supporting element that helps kind of anchor in what this is about. So maybe you time shift it a little bit. So now maybe I don't have any melodies in my head, or I don't have any basses or whatever, but when it comes into drums, like it's a lot easier to figure out what to do with this, right? I mean, how many different beats can you come up with for this type of, you know, for this groove or whatever? Take the timbre aspect out of it and just try to focus on like the placement and the rhythm of it. That's one. Okay. Okay, that's two. Or, right? Or You get what I'm saying? Like it helps you get from, it helps me anyways, get from one piece or another. And now that I have some kind of placement like this, you can even record your own voice, but you're essentially creating these worlds, right? You're creating these environments that are like teasers or cliffhangers of anticipation for your own imagination of what you want, or like what you kind of are trying to pull out from your brain, you know. And maybe you can lean even more into this as well. Like, let's say for this, you know, you want to keep the same rhythm, but then on the next bar you want to have the same placement, but you change the sounds, or you do like a call and response, or you know what I mean. Like, you're starting to create these transactions. It doesn't really, or sorry, transitions, variations rather. My brain works way faster than my anatomy apparently, but the rest of my anatomy. But within this, you are using this as a catalyst. You're using this as a vibe. And these are the kinds of examples that I kind of just wanted to show you and go with you over, so that way you can use them to not only help start a track idea, but also be able to just play with this, like playing with the simplicity and not being in such a rush to just get to the beat, or like, you know, get the drums down and get this and whatever, but giving yourself time to unfold your emotions and just be comfortable with sitting with that one thing, you know, that one thing of what the track is about. Not every track needs to be written like this, but for me, if I were to hear something like this, for one, my mind always goes to like Flying Lotus or whatever. But what kinds of things can you come up with going off of something? It's like when you're in a beatbox circle and your friend is like, you know, beatbox, and they go, and then like you're like, oh shit, what am I going to add to that? You know, you're trying to play off of it. You're trying to play off of something that you're already putting in the DAW in which to expand on. I would say the more that you can build out these environments and these atmospheres and all that, the more that it's going to help you figure out what to do. But don't limit yourself to thinking that it has to be a melody, it has to be an atmosphere, it has to be chords, it has to be one thing or the other. It doesn't matter. It's just the concept itself, from putting some kind of sonics in your DAW on loop to listen to and to try to feel out. I probably could have said that at the beginning of the video, but I still think that the demonstration and the context probably helped make that a little bit easier to understand post yapping. Yeah, so that's pretty much the premise of this video. I hope that this was helpful, and you see me do this on stream quite a bit. And if you're not feeling very motivated to write, then just making these atmospheres and these worlds, I would say, like, build these worlds, build these, you know, build these teasers, build these vibes, whatever you want to call it, as much as possible, knowing that you put in a little bit of work towards your creative output, and knowing that these are going to be things that will be easier for you to expand on in the future. Yeah, cool. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Alckemy.com. Like the video, subscribe, and let me know if you all have any tricks to help, you know, get your juices flowing and stuff. Yeah, I'm curious. Let's have a discussion. See ya.